my beautiful lovelies. Hello, it's Emmy. Welcome back. Today I'm going to be making a homemade version of the famous Jollibee peach mango pie. So if you've never heard of Jollibee's peach mango pie, I actually had my very first taste of it when I had my first taste of Jollibee a few months ago. And Jollibee is the beloved Filipino fast food chain that has relatively recently come to the US. And they have a little dessert that's pretty similar to the old-fashioned McDonald's apple pie, the kind that comes in a little sleeve, it's a little rectangle, and it's deep fried. But instead of being filled with apple cinnamon filling, it's filled with peach mango love. It is so stinking good. It has a really beautiful, crisp, crunchy crust because it's deep fried, and it's rich and kind of buttery, and then it's filled with this sweet, peachy, mangoey, slightly tangy filling. It's so delicious and memorable, and because the nearest Jollibee is 3 hours away from me, I decided to try to make my own. So right off the bat, I thought I'd do a little bit of a comparison. I'm going to compare store-bought pie dough with a homemade version. The logic being is that Jollibee is a large fast food chain, and there is something to be said of this kind of processed food flavor that you get from fast food chains. So I thought maybe some of that would be emulated in a supermarket store-bought pie crust. So the recipe that I'm going to be using today is adapted from a few that I found online, and I will be putting all their links in the description down below. So to begin, we're going to take our flour, and then we're going to add our shortening, and then use our fingertips to blend the shortening into the flour until we get nice little crumbles, kind of the texture of coarse sand. Add your sugar and your salt, give this little mix, then form a little well in the middle. Then we're going to add our milk and our egg yolk. So mix this up and you'll get kind of a shaggy dough, and then turn it out onto your counter. And try not to overwork it at this point, and just try to form a ball. And we're gonna let this dough rest. It may seem a little bit dry, but it's imperative that you let it rest for a few hours, and I went ahead and just let mine rest overnight. Don't be tempted to add more milk or yolk, just allow the dough to rest and it'll absorb all that flour. Okay, so here we are. Next, we're gonna make our filling. We're gonna take some canned peaches and drain them from the syrup, give them a little chop, add an equal amount of mango. Then heat this up on medium heat, add a pinch of salt, add your sugar, stir this up until the fruit gets nice and soft and releases some of the juices. At this point, we're gonna gauge the thickness and consistency of the fruit. If it's a little bit too runny, we're gonna thicken it up with a slurry made of 2 teaspoons of cornstarch mixed with about a tablespoon of water. All right, so once this is nice and thick and jammy, we're gonna let this cool, and we are ready to assemble our pie. Okay, now we're ready to roll out our dough, and I'm gonna work with half of it first. All right, so set this aside. So this is how I like to work pie dough. I like to use 2 pieces of wax paper. So this pie dough is really supple. It's easy to roll. It's had a long resting time, so all that gluten has loosened up. So this recipe looks like it's enough for a top and bottom crust for a typical pie. Let's check on the thickness. That looks pretty good. So that's our homemade. And let me take out the store-bought. Couldn't be any simpler, you just unroll it. Except did that, that's not cool. Okay. Let me take off the wax paper. And there is the homemade versus the store-bought. I went ahead and made myself just a little template. This is roughly a 4x4, almost square. I use a pastry cutter to get myself some pie shapes. We'll save all these scraps and we can reuse them for other pies. All right, so now we're ready to fill our pies. And what I found interesting in the couple tutorials I watched, we used egg wash on the inside, but this is the egg white on the inside of the pie. So I don't speak or understand Tagalog, but I suspect this might be to keep the filling from softening the crust, and also helps to seal the pie as well. If any of you guys watch that video, do let me know if you know what they say. All right, next I'm gonna take our filling, place probably about 1.5 teaspoons to 2 teaspoons of it inside of the pie. I'm going to fold this over. Next, we're going to take a fork and give it a little crimp. cute. Cute, 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 cute. So I'm just beating up an egg here. That will give it a nice golden color. All right, so I'm gonna fill the other pies now. Fold it over. Okay, so now that my pies are all made, we're ready to deep fry. I've got my cast iron Dutch oven here, and I've got some oil, about an inch at oil that's about 350, 360 degrees Fahrenheit. Take our pie, coat it with the egg wash. I'm gonna do one without the egg wash and see if there's a noticeable difference. Okay. This is the homemade crust. Okay, we're gonna nudge these off the bottom so they don't stick. Oh yeah, gorgeous. Alrighty, so now we're done frying. Let's go ahead and taste these. Now these turned out beautifully. These two have the egg wash on them, and I noticed that there's a little bit more bubbling on the surface of the pies than the ones that did not. But these still fried up nice and beautifully, nice and golden. They just don't have that signature bubbling. So this is the homemade version. All right, here we go. Itadakimasu. Now, the flavor of that is pretty spot on. That filling is pretty spot on. Maybe a little less sweet. I remember the original being pretty sweet. Maybe one more tablespoon of sugar if you really want that sweet, sweet center. But I like the kind of balance of tangy mango with sugar. The crust is different. The crust tastes delicious. It's nice and fried and has kind of a flakiness, but it's missing that big crunch. The filling is spot on though. A combination of peach and mango. Very, very good one. Sweet, tangy, delicious. All right, so that was a homemade. The crust is not at all similar to Jollibee. All right, let's taste the store-bought crust. This one has the egg wash on it. Here we go. Oh. Very, very, very different. This is much more like a typical American pie crust. It's very, very flaky and light. It's not hard and crunchy. So yes, this pie crust needs some tweaking because I love that big hard crunch of the original. This is very, very flaky, almost like shortbread. It doesn't have any of that big bite either. It still tastes pretty good, but I prefer the homemade version because I feel like the store-bought pie crust absorbed a lot of the oil. Granted, this is not made to be deep fried, but it feels and tastes pretty oily. Now let's give the homemade version a taste that doesn't have the glaze. Maybe it'll be crunchier. And that was a little bit crunchier. So maybe, and you can hear it, it sounds a little bit crunchier. So maybe the trick is not to put the egg glaze on there, just to roll it out thinner and not put the egg glaze on there. But see how the homemade one puffed more than the store-bought version? The filling is delicious though. The combination of peach and mango is a genius one though. I personally can't stand canned peaches. I've never liked the smell of them ever since I was a child. But combined with mango, absolutely smashing. All right, now since we have it, we might as well taste the unglazed store-bought one. That again feels overly heavy and oily. I much prefer the homemade version of the dough. All right, I hope you guys enjoyed that one. I hope you guys learned something. Let me know in the comments if you've ever had a Jollibee peach pie before, or if there's anything else on the menu I should try. If you haven't seen the first video, I'll put the link down below. I'm planning a trip to the city pretty soon, so I have to get my Jollibee fix in while I am there. So let me know in the comments what I should eat. And yeah, hope you guys enjoyed that one. I hope you guys learned something. Share this video with your friends, follow me on social media, subscribe, and I shall see you in my next one. Toodaloo, take care, bye!